My parents used my inheritance to buy my sister a car, and it took a single call from my dying grandmother to unravel their lies. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. I inherited money from my late uncle, money I'd hoped would finally let me breathe without constantly worrying about bills. But when I asked about the funds, I discovered Howard and Janet had quietly handed everything to Mary for a flashy car. She smiled like nothing was wrong, but I saw the truth behind her eyes, greed disguised as joy. The betrayal crushed me, yet my grandmother's voice on the phone reminded me I wasn't powerless. That call lit a fire, and I began plotting to reclaim what was mine and teach them all the cost of treachery. When I finally tried to access my inheritance to cover rent and overdue bills, my heart sank. The account was nearly empty, and a large withdrawal had been made for Mary, my own sister, without my knowledge. Shock froze me in place, disbelief gnawing at my chest. I demanded answers from Howard and Janet, my voice shaking as I asked why they'd taken what belonged to me. They shrugged, insisting they were helping Mary and that I should be grateful for family generosity. But their smiles felt like knives. I stared at them, trying to process the betrayal. The money wasn't just finances, it was my future, my independence, my hard-earned security. Realization hit hard. Favoritism wasn't just unfair, it was intentional. My own parents had chosen her over me, and the wound cut deeper than I ever imagined. I remember growing up constantly juggling chores, part-time jobs, and school projects, always trying to lighten the burden at home. I saved every dollar I could, thinking it would someday make life easier for myself and my family. Meanwhile, Mary had a talent for twisting situations in her favor. Tears, charm, or tantrums could get her anything she wanted. I'd watch her unwrap yet another gift while I stayed behind, unnoticed, my efforts overlooked. Howard and Janet praised her cleverness, dismissing my hard work as expected. The unfairness stung quietly for years, but I kept pushing, believing fairness would eventually catch up. Now, seeing my inheritance handed to Mary so effortlessly, that old ache returned, sharper than ever. Childhood memories reminded me that favoritism wasn't new, it had been a constant pattern, and my parents had chosen her yet again, leaving me with nothing but heartbreak and resolve. The phone rang just as I was staring at the empty account, frustration and despair weighing me down. On the line was Grandma Evelyn, her voice weak but steady from hospice. She didn't need an explanation, she already knew. "You've always been the responsible one, Laura," she said, trembling slightly. "Don't let them take what's rightfully yours. Keep your guard up. Never trust them blindly." Tears blurred my vision as her words sank in. I felt a mix of sorrow and a sudden surge of strength, like a spark igniting a fire inside me. Years of being overlooked and dismissed boiled into sharp clarity. I couldn't let them win again. Even in her fading moments, Grandma was my anchor. Her warning hit harder than any argument or confrontation ever could, pushing me to stand firm, protect myself, and finally confront the deceit that had stolen so much from me. I stood in the living room, hands clenched, heart pounding, as I demanded answers once more. Howard and Janet exchanged uneasy glances before Janet's voice cut through. "We did what was best for the family," she said smoothly. "Mary needed the car more than you ever did. You should be thankful we're looking out for everyone." Howard nodded in agreement, adding, "You've always been responsible, Laura, but sometimes you forget the bigger picture. Family comes first." Their words hit me like ice. Gratitude? Bigger picture? It felt like a mask for selfishness. No amount of reasoning, no explanation of fairness, would make them see me as more than an obstacle. The truth settled cold in my chest. This betrayal wasn't accidental or thoughtless, it was deliberate. Their favoritism wasn't ignorance, it was choice. And I couldn't let it stand. I refused to let their deception continue. Quietly, I began reclaiming control over what was rightfully mine, careful not to alert anyone prematurely. Each step was deliberate, measured. I scheduled a meeting with a lawyer, explaining the misuse of my inheritance and asking about options to protect my assets. I learned I could freeze transactions, challenge the diversion of funds, and hold those responsible accountable. Armed with knowledge, I started compiling records, bank statements, receipts, and every interaction where my rights were ignored. Every note, every document became a piece of the plan. Calm anger replaced the initial shock. Instead of lashing out, I focused on strategy, letting logic guide my decisions. For the first time, I felt power instead of helplessness. Their betrayal had ignited a careful, unstoppable resolve within me. I found Miri alone in her room, the car keys dangling from her hand like a trophy. Calmly, I told her everything, the inheritance, the hidden transfers, and the law I was prepared to enforce. Her face shifted from surprise to guilt, lips trembling as she tried to claim ignorance. "I didn't know," she whispered, eyes wide, but I could see the panic underneath. For the first time, she realized my parents weren't untouchable, and her sense of security wavered. The tension between us was suffocating, a mix of fear, anger, and betrayal. I didn't yell or cry, I simply let her sit with the truth, letting the reality of her privilege crashing down around her. Family loyalty had fractured irreparably. From that moment, every interaction carried the weight of betrayal, and the once unshakable household began to splinter. Weeks later, formal notices arrived at Howard and Janet's doorstep, confirming what I had quietly prepared. My lawyer had reversed the misuse of funds, reclaiming every dollar siphoned to Miri without my consent. I watched from a distance as the reality hit them, their carefully hidden favoritism exposed, their control slipping. The bank froze accounts, legal obligations stacked up, and friends and relatives began questioning their decisions. Pride turned to unease, arrogance dissolved into embarrassment. A mix of satisfaction and sorrow settled over me. I had regained what was mine, yet the price was steep, a family torn apart, trust shattered beyond repair. They faced the consequences they never anticipated, but no victory felt complete when the people who should have loved me unconditionally had chosen betrayal. In reclaiming justice, I realized freedom carried both relief and lingering heartbreak. With the reclaimed inheritance, I finally took steps to secure my future, rent, bills, and a small savings account that no one could touch. I also made sure Grandma Evelyn was comfortable in hospice, surrounding her final days with care and love she deserved. Miri, once confident in her position, suddenly found her influence over the family slipping. The privileges she had taken for granted vanished, leaving her to confront the emptiness behind her charm and manipulations. For the first time, she saw how her actions and reliance on favoritism had isolated her. I felt a quiet strength, a sense of balance restored. Justice wasn't about punishment alone, it was about reclaiming control and protecting what mattered. The betrayal no longer dictated my life. I had survived, prevailed, and closed that chapter on my terms, finally free from the weight of their selfishness. Sitting quietly in my apartment, I replayed everything, the betrayals, the heartbreak, the years of being undervalued. Every unfair glance, every manipulated gift, every dollar stolen had tested me, but it also shaped the person I had become. I realized that forgiveness for Howard and Janet wasn't mine to give, they had shown they didn't deserve it. For the first time, I felt unshackled. The weight of toxic expectations and family manipulation lifted, leaving only clarity and purpose. I had rebuilt my life on my terms, strengthened by hardship and guided by my own principles. Miri's reckoning, Grandma's wisdom, and my perseverance formed a legacy I could carry proudly. No one could dictate my worth again. They demanded loyalty, but I chose freedom, and no one will ever control me again. Do you think I did the right thing by standing up and reclaiming what was mine, or should I have forgiven my parents? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. Subscribe and hit the bell for more stories like this.